A monk once asked Master Joshu, has a dog Buddha nature or not? Joshu said, Mu. People of training start with this first koan, Joshu's Mu. If this koan is not realized, then the path of Zen will not open. It cannot be said that nowadays all religions show us a path for liberating all beings. Rather, it seems that they are a path for creating further trouble. The original purpose of all religions has been lost. In the monotheistic religions, a God is central, and that is where the path is leading towards the God outside. We all have a body, and our spiritual mind also needs to be developed, or else we keep fighting on the physical level only, as you can see nowadays in so many places. The body does, of course, exist, but it is the expression of our mind. The base is in our Dharma body. There are 7.7 billion people who live on this planet, yet we are all one in this Dharma body. Not only humans, all minerals, all plants, all animals as well, all existence is based in oneness in this Dharma body. By awakening to this, then it is not longer about searching for a God outside, but this inner faith arises, which then can guide all of us equally on the path. And that is what the Buddha realized 2,600 years ago. This base of mind, which can receive all existence and can give light again to all existence. That is what the Buddha realized. It cannot be named, so it was called Buddha nature, since it was realized by the Buddha. The Buddha himself did ascetic training when he was young for 6 years in Dantoku mountain. The Buddha could not perceive why people were not able to reach out to one another while there was so many fights going on. He had many great teachers, and the last 2 great teachers he had were Harada Kalama and Uttaraka Ramaputra. They were teaching to not think, and even to not think. That was the path to reach the truth in this world. Because we continue to perceive through our ego attachment, that is why we keep creating trouble. But to not think, and to not even think to not think, this was the base for true peace. That is how these 2 great teachers taught. The Buddha could see the meaning in their teaching, yet then he asked them, so in that mind of not thinking, and even not thinking to not think, is there ego or is there no ego? If there is ego, then to say you don't think and you don't even think to not think, that is just negating the thoughts. And then again, that moment for certain will arise when thoughts again come up, when again confusion comes forth. And if you say there is no ego, then in the first place, there is no need for practice at all. So how about it? Is there ego or is there no ego? The 2 saints could not answer these questions. The Buddha realized that this teaching may be a path for those 2 saints, but can it really be a path to liberate all people in this world? That was the Buddha's vow, to find a path that can liberate all beings. And he wanted to resolve all confusion from its very source and bring true peace to the world. That was the Buddha's determination. The Buddha had taken 6 years of training, of ascetic training in the mountains, letting go of all extraneous thoughts, negating anything that would arise in his mind, and he had become pure and bright in his mind. He would only drink 1 gulp of water a day, 1 pine nut a day, and the rest he would spend in nature, purifying his mind, deepening his state of mind. For 6 years, he continued the efforts in this way. But then he finally realized that this was still a rather small-minded way of going about it, and he went down the mountain. Since he had become too weak, he collapsed. In the nearby village of Sujata, a girl saw a collapsed monk and brought some cow milk boiled with rice, which the Buddha did not refuse. Drinking this, he gained strength, and again determination arose. He then went to the town of Gaya, where he sat on the rock, the so-called diamond seat. Until now, he had been sitting with efforts for 6 years, but by now his state of mind had ripened, and he was dwelling in that state of mind, simply being present. On the 8th of December, he saw the morning star. After having negated all for 6 years, he was in oneness with that bright light of the morning star. He started to shine forth in oneness with the star. This experience of truth again gave the Buddha strength to continue, but he did not think that he had realized awakening. He only saw that by negating all for 6 years, he could realize that mind which we all are from the very beginning. And he exclaimed, how wondrous, all beings are endowed with this pure mind from the very beginning to which I have just awakened. This purified state of mind is what all beings are born with. It took him 6 years to realize this, which he is from the very beginning. Why then is there so much confusion in the world? Because of ego attachment, because of ego confusion. Humans getting confused by their ego perceptions, going on about things, about this and that, and losing track of their original mind. By simply returning to that, the confusion in the world would be resolved. And that is what the Buddha realized. This state of mind is what is called Buddha nature. We are all doing Zazen here at the session to realize our original mind, this Dharma mind. Our bodies are separate. They're separate in space and time, yet this original mind pierces through this. This is the Mu of Joshu. This is the expression of Dharma mind which needs to be experienced. There is no concepts in Dharma mind. We need to experience it for ourselves, where all ideas drop off and we simply return to this pure mind. That is our Zazen. All is in oneness in Buddha nature. That is what the Buddha taught. A monk, hearing this teaching of the Buddha, then took it to Joshu and said, the Buddha says that we are all endowed with this Buddha nature, yet how about it? Where can it be found in my confused mind? That is what the monk asked Joshu. And Joshu only answered with one word, Mu. We cannot perceive from ego attachment. This Mu is a word of negation. Only by negating all ideas, all knowledge, all past experience, by letting go of all of these, can we return to our original mind. That is our practice of Zazen. Who was living in the area of Peking, in the temple of Kanonin. His monk name was Jushin Zenji, and since he then later became the abbot in the area of Joshu, he was called Joshu. Born in 778, and he died in 897 at the high age of 120 in Kanonin temple. At the age of 19, he decided that he wanted to do Zen training. So he went to Nansen Osho's place. Nansen Osho was famous for not teaching Zen in a conceptual way, but Zen in action, Zen in daily life. That is how he would teach and guide his students in deepening in mind. a monk came to see Nansen and asked about the Zen of Nansen. It was on a day when Nansen was doing Samo. He had a kama, a weed cutting tool in his hand, and when being asked about his teaching, he said, "This weed cutting tool was so cheap, just 10 euro, and even though it was so cheap, it cuts really well." The monk said, "I am asking about your Zen teaching, not about your weed cutting tool." Nansen made a face as if he did not understand what the monk was saying and simply continued with his grass cutting. This is how Nansen was teaching. The tool being cheap was Zen. The cutting of weeds was Zen. It was not any mental idea that was Nansen's Zen. Joshu, at the young age of 19, went to see this very Nansen. He had caught him on a day after Nansen had finished his samu, his work, and was resting on the porch lying down. He went up to him and Nansen asked him, "Where have you come from?" And Joshu honestly said, "From Soshu, from where the Zoin, the festive Buddha statue, was." So Nansen asked him, "Did you pray to this Buddha statue?" And Joshu replied, it was a question as of asking, "Did you experience Satori?" And Joshu replied, "No, I did not pray to this festive Buddha, but now I'm praying to a rather sleepy Buddha." Nansen heard this, and he could see that this kind of question was not conceptual, but it was right to the point. That is how true Zen is. It is alive in each moment, not about any information or ideas. Nansen heard this answer of Joshu and sat up. He said, "Do you already have a decided teacher or not?" Joshu said, "Oh, well, I'm so happy that my teacher is in such good health." This is how Joshu was right to the point, bowing to Nansen, who had not even accepted him as a student yet. This is how sharp Joshu already was at the age of 19 before starting Zen training. His eye already was alive, sharply perceiving truth. From then on, Nansen taught Joshu for almost 40 years carefully. At the age of 57, after having done training for almost 40 years, his teacher Nansen died. And it was the tradition in China at that time to care for the grave for 3 years, and that is what Joshu did. He would continue to give offerings for 3 years to Nansen's soul. And at the age of 60, he took his kesabuko, the box with all his monk tools, and went on pilgrimage. Nowadays, the age of 60 is already a time to retire, and at that time, the average life expectancy was 50 years. But at the age of 60, Joshu went on pilgrimage, and he decided that if he were to encounter an 8-year-old boy, and this boy would have something to teach him, he would learn from him. And if he would meet a 100-year-old person who was not awakened yet, he would teach that old person. With this vow, Joshu went on pilgrimage for 20 years until he was 80. He went all over China, encountering great masters, challenging them in teaching. And at the age of 80, he entered the temple of Kanonin, where he became the abbot. From then on, from the age of 80, for 40 years, he would teach his own students, and he raised many of them. He was someone dying at the high age of 120, and it is said that he did double the amount of training compared to a normal person, and he lived double the amount of life expectancy. This is how Joshu's life was, that Joshu who gave the Mu here. This koan, when Joshu gave Mu, was taking place when Joshu was almost 120 years old. A monk asked him, "My mind is like a dog, sniffing here, sniffing there, always looking for some teaching here, reading a book there. Where is this immovable Buddha nature to be found in this noisy mind?" That is how the monk perceived his own state of mind, looking there for some teaching, listening to a talk here, but not awakening to the truth yet. Where is my Buddha nature to be found? Of course, the Buddha said that all are endowed with Buddha nature. That is the very basic teaching of Buddhism. That is true for all 93 people gathered here. All have this pure mind from birth. Yet because of our many ego ideas, which we did not have when we were born, but because of them we create confusion, we confuse ourselves. And that is why Joshu answered with one word, Mu. In the Katoshu collection of koans, it continues with Joshu explaining, "You create this confusion because you have karma. Because of karma, you are not able to perceive your pure mind." In the Bible, it also says, "Only with this pure mind can you enter heaven." It is our concepts that limit our functioning. It is our concepts that limit us. Our karma is creating these concepts. And this is where Joshu simply answers Mu. There is no concept, no teaching needed. We sit, we walk, we stand, we move all day long. Yet if we move from ego, only confusion arises. And this is where you need to use this Mu. Standing not from ego, but Mu. Walking not from ego, but Mu. Zazen, of course, not from ego, but Mu. Seeing from Mu. Hearing not from ego, but from Mu. Smelling not from ego, but from Mu. Tasting not from ego, but from Mu. Feeling not from ego, but from Mu only. From morning until night, only this Mu, Mu, Mu. Until you are able to let go of all these gathered ideas, until they are all cleaned up, you need to use this Mu, or else you cannot experience the truth. The Buddha practiced this for 6 years. It is not about the amount of years, but until you have finished this big cleaning. Joshu experienced this state of mind, this ripened state of mind, and from there he answered Mu. Everyone here as well, you need to use this Mu sharply, cutting with it right to the source before all ideas arise again, before all concepts arise. Let go of all past experience until you only are in oneness with this Mu. And then there is no more confusion. There is no more ego that perceives. You need to let go of all of these personal ideas, and only from then can you pierce through all concepts and experience this koan. Everyone sitting zazen with a physical body, and the body hurts after 5 minutes. We get tense in our body. But our mind is not a prisoner of this body. Our mind is this huge space. And this huge space is our true being. We can taste our true mind through this space. It is not about practicing patience and bearing the pain, but about being this huge mind. Of course, our body shows many expressions. It gets tense, it hurts, it gets tired. Yet our mind is huge. And if we sit with the focus on this, we see that our body is part of this huge, great space. There, object and subject melt into oneness. And that is zazen. That is alive zazen. The body may be tight, but if we forget this body, if we pierce through the zendo, we become this huge space. And that is the grace of zazen. Don't go on with small ideas and concepts. As Rinzai says, there's a true person of no rank coming in and out of your face. If you haven't seen him yet, then look. Our body is below 2 meters, but our mind is this huge space, and that is our true body, free from ideas and concepts. We need to experience this in our Zazen. Don't play around with thoughts in your Zazen. Let go of them, put them aside, and then you will intuitively experience this huge mind which you are. This is true Zazen. While saying this, we do have the habit of having many thoughts. And if we pay attention to these thoughts, even further thoughts will arise, and then we get used by them, get moved around by them. So we need to return to each exhalation, to each breath with this mu, with the numbers, counting from 1 until 10, adding numbers to each exhalation, becoming one with each breath. That is the alive mu. Mu is not a word. Mu does not exist, but it is the experience of each mind moment free from concepts. Become huge in your mind. Fill the whole Zendo. Fill the whole universe. He is praying for us to practice this kind of Zazen. We have 1 week now ahead of us. Use this Samadhi. Become the Samadhi in each moment. You can also use it in your daily life then. Let go of all confusing thoughts and become actually one with each mind moment. That is the Roshi's greatest wish.